So this video came out. It says Palestine action spray and slash a historic painting of Lord Balfour in Trinity College, University of Cambridge. Written in 1917, Balfour's declaration began the ethnic cleansing of Palestine by promising the land away, which the British never had the rights to do. Yeah. And I am going to say what I said on Twitter. Hot take. This performance is more of an art piece than the commissioned painting of this piece of shit. I stand by that. Now, there's a bunch of different aspects that are occurring with regard to this. I saw people being like, oh, you know who else destroyed art? The Nazis. To which I must respond, do you know how much art has been destroyed? How many areas and buildings of cultural significance have been destroyed in Gaza that we will never get back because of the incessant and completely relentless bombing of Gaza? Fuck you. Second, all right, I do not have respect for the art form that is rich people commissioning artists to draw paintings of them. That's not art. It's art. That's not art. Art is something that an artist makes because they want to make it. This is a photo of someone. This is vanity. Like, I have no, and I get it. People are like, oh my God, how could you say that? You know, some of the best works of art are portraits and the technical skill that went into this oil painting. You cannot, I don't care. Okay, the artists themselves, most artists did not want to do this shit. Most artists did this shit because they needed a way to pay for the art that they wanted. Like, this shit made a lot of money. And so it's like, okay, you want a painting of yourself? Okay, I'll paint your ugly ass fucking mug. Here you go. They didn't want to make that. They made it because, oh, this is my, what's the term? Basically someone who kind of finances your life. Patron. There we go. And that's why they did it. How about the Sistine Chapel? The Sistine Chapel is the perfect example of that. The Sistine Chapel was, in fact, not something that Michelangelo wanted to work on. He hated it, and he was forced to by the church. And it caused him permanent lung damage, painting the ceilings of the Sistine Chapel. And he died at an earlier age because guess what? When you're painting like this for 10 hours a day, you inhale a lot of paint. And paint was not human grade, let's say, back in the day. He wanted to make marble sculptures of sexy hot men. And the church forced him to paint it. And they were like, listen, man, we can pay you to paint this, or we can kill you. So what do you want? But it's kind of your choice, man. So you're saying it was the furry art commissions of their time? Precisely. Exactly. This is just furries getting their OCs commissioned. It's not to say that it can't be excellent in terms of like technique. It's just that the painting has no meaning. It's a painting of some guy because he wanted to get a portrait of himself. Also, the paintings like that sell for shit tons now because nobody wanted their normal works when they were alive. So there is that. There is the aspect of, don't you dare give a fuck about this when you haven't given a fuck about all of the art and destruction of art and architecture in Gaza. Do not, because you don't care. You, at that point, you only care about your side and your art getting destroyed, which fuck you. Second, if there was ever a cause to vandalize art, it would be this. People currently getting harmed today. People currently getting genocided today. That sounds like a pretty good fucking reason to destroy art. because you're doing it as a way to protest and get more attention and more eyes to the suffering of other people. And that's a fucking good reason to, if there was ever one. If there's no injustice currently happening, I think in general, my first instinct is to keep those pieces of art or pieces of history. So this is like my more problematic art take, which is there was during the BLM riots and protests and defacing of sculptures and statues and stuff. I stand by the fact that a lot of the videos of the defiling of these statues is in and of itself art. But I do think that those should be stored for a period of time where maybe we can have them on display in a museum with a plaque and context. I don't think that we should have sculptures of fucking slave owners in parks. That seems bad. Stop it, Meerkat. That seems like a bad idea. Meerkat. Why is that controversial? Well, because some people disagree and they think, no, fuck those slave owners. We should simply just destroy that. We should destroy those sculptures. But I view it sort of the same way that I view a lot of the, they're not the same. And I'm not saying they're the same. I'm just drawing an analogy, which is it's important to keep history so that lest we repeat it. In the same way that I wouldn't want the museums in Germany that are ex-camps or just filled with like Nazi memorabilia, essentially. But they are filled with the context of what the Nazis did and photographs of what they did. Those are important to have just for history purposes, for historical purposes. So that there is no one that can say, well, that didn't happen, or no, it wasn't that bad, or whatever. It's good to have like learning museums and to have them in a place where they have context. But they shouldn't be in public. That's like putting a sculpture of a slave owner in public is like not quite at the same level, but it's close to the same level of like putting a sculpture of fucking like Hitler or some commanding officer in a park. It's like, whoa, dude, why are you having this fucking person publicly displayed? What? Are you crazy? No, that should not be publicly displayed. That should be in a museum where the people who go to museums read the plaques to understand the context. They were not old statues. They were new statues. That doesn't change my perspective or my opinion. Something doesn't have to be historic for it to be important in history. Like the fact that there were, this is my opinion, right? The fact that there ever were sculptures in public parks of slave owners is an important part of history. And so to take that out of a physical park and to put it in a museum with all of the context is a reminder to everyone that, hey, actually, racism didn't end when we abolished slavery. It didn't end when we gave people the right to vote. It didn't end when we ended segregation. It didn't end when Obama became president. It was still ongoing the entire time. So that's what I mean, to be clear. I mean it as like a form of history, and that art in and of itself is history. It's just that, and generally speaking, anyone here who goes to museums, you know that the people who go to museums actually do appreciate and take in the context of the work. Museum enjoyers rise up. No one goes in and is like, wow, the pretty paintings. Oh my God, it's so pretty, pretty colors, and then leaves. The context is just as important when it comes to art and stuff. MoMA? Yeah. I mean, that's like most people, though. No, I think that when you go to a museum even a few times, you start to like desire to understand the context, because the context adds a lot to museums and like the things that you see in museums. So anyways, moving on. That's just my personal perspective on those things. However, in this case, I do not consider these paintings and these portraits to be art, because they aren't even things that like the actual artist themselves wants to do. This is something that they did to pay bills. This is literally the equivalent of furry commission art, which like, yeah, it made the person who commissioned it happy and they helped, propagate or build up artists in the space and whatever, all that other stuff. But if the person themselves has no interest in doing that, fuck that. I don't know, who cares? Second, fuck this piece of shit. Oh my God. This guy. Third, this was actually a form of protest for something that is ongoing right now. For a genocide that is ongoing right now. And if you're like, no, we can't destroy art for any reason ever. No, let's not deal in absolutes, shall we? No. This was their 7-Eleven shift, yeah. Now, to be clear, there are people who do like doing like caricature work. And there are people who do like doing portrait work. I'm talking about the fact that most of these paintings that you see are not paintings that the people who painted them wanted to paint. It has no significance. It has no meaning. It's like taking a selfie. Your selfie in and of itself is not necessarily a work of art or a piece of art with any meaning. So there's that. They made it for their Patreons. Yeah. Yeah. So I can't destroy my child's terrible art that's on the fridge. Never. Okay. My selfies are art. Okay. And finally. This video is more of a work of art than the actual fucking piece of art. What does the painting mean? It doesn't mean shit. Hey, this rich guy, this old rich white guy that was alive at one point ruined all these people's lives. Okay? What is this video? This video is way more a work of art than that ever could be, or wishes it could be. So normally we shouldn't destroy art. This is one of the few instances where I'm like, actually, I don't care. Fuck that art. Fuck that art. It's not. And also, it's, again, like other people said, it's probably just a fucking print. It's probably not even the original painting, because why wouldn't it be behind like a glass thing? If it is the original painting, though, that would be so sick. That would be so sick. So yeah, that's it. That's my 2 cents on it. It's self-indulgent posturing for status. Yeah. 100% it's a performance with a meaning rather than a glorified selfie. It was on par with a magazine cover with like Elon Musk's face on it. Yeah. Can people find meaning in art even if the original artist did not? Yeah, of course. Of course. This is, I implore everyone to look at the destruction of art. Now, just hear me out. Just hear me out. The way that you look at abortions, where generally speaking, I think most people agree, randomly deciding to get an abortion in the middle of your pregnancy is maybe morally questionable. For no reason, just being like, you know what? I want to kill. Luckily, no one does that, of course. No one is doing that. No one has ever done that, ever. Maybe someone who's having like a moment of psychosis or something, or like a mental break of some sort. And I think most people will agree that, like, after a certain point, after viability, I would say, I think that there are moral qualms with abortion. At the very least, that's my stance. I disagree with what is viability at? It's like third trimester, right? Viability. "24 weeks pregnant." How many months is that? 24 weeks. 5 months. Okay, so it's 5.5 months. So it's at the end of the second trimester. It's at the very end of the second trimester. So basically, third trimester. So I think morally, you can have personal qualms with the act of abortion. And morally, you can have personal qualms. At the very least, I understand why people could have personal qualms about post-viability abortions. Right? I understand that. Unfortunately, or rather fortunately, something is more important than that, and it is people's right to their autonomous bodies. It's people's autonomy, people's right to their own human beings and human flesh, and that you should be able to remove and discard anything from your body that literally is feeding off of you. You should be able to remove that whenever you want. So I think there are a good number of people, and you guys can tell me if this is you or it isn't you. There's probably a good number of people that recognize, yes, after a certain period of time, it definitely does feel like you are murdering, or rather that it's still a fetus, or rather that there are maybe some moral qualms, but I don't care about that, because a woman's right to autonomy is more important. It's significantly more important, especially considering that everything that has been created up until that point, like every part of the fetus that has been created up to that point, was due to that woman. And that forcing people to give birth is morally unconscionable. And no one should ever have to deal with that. No one should ever have to deal with something so traumatic. Me and my ex was aborting the way conservatives think people do. We just felt to stop. Okay. We define it when life starts. There's no set in stone answer. Defining it at viability ignores the dangers of even just giving birth. And yeah, that's why I say, even if I have moral qualms with abortions post viability, at the end of the day, there's something that's more important than that. And that is people's right to their bodies. At any point, you as the host should be able to remove the thing that is living off of you when you want to. On the same topic, I do think morally the destruction of art is generally bad. It is at a net negative. However, in the instance of people literally getting genocided today, I think that's a little bit more important than the negative of destroying art. If all of that makes sense. I'm not sure if I brought it back correctly. I also don't really care about the preservation of art depicting awful people. Yeah, and I have to say I kind of agree, because, like, thinking about it, right? I don't really think I would want a fucking... Can you imagine a painting like this of Hitler? I kind of would want that to get destroyed. Like, there is such a thing as keeping things that are part of history and then keeping things that are just paintings of really terrible people. I don't know about destroy, but at the very least put into storage and out of view. Yeah. His videos probably be shown in schools 50 to 100 years from now. The only thing that this guy had was being rich and a fascist. Yep. Yeah. So I think that mostly explains what I'm talking about. I think that explains. I think it just comes off very callous to say, how could you destroy that amazing work of art? How could you do that? When people are literally, you care more about a painting than tens of thousands of people dying, mostly kids. You need to get your priorities in check. You need to get priorities in check immediately. Fucking immediately. Holy shit. Oh yeah, no, to be clear, I totally agree with this, by the way. Totally agree with this. This is very important. It depends on the message of the painting as well. A critical painting of Hitler sends a different message than a regal portrait. Precisely. Like, and this is something that is meant to aggrandize Balfour. And that in and of itself makes me think like, fuck this piece of art. Palestine's history is being erased by destroying their museums and history. Yeah. For anyone who hasn't, can I have a quick show of hands? One's if you've watched Noah Sampson's video on Palestine, and two's if you haven't seen it. I'm not going to watch the whole thing, but I do want to show the art section of it. It's a really good video, to be clear. But it's a 44-minute long video, and I'm worried that I won't be able to finish all the other content. But I highly recommend. Friend of the channel, Noah Sampson, great video on Palestine. Great video on Palestine. But if I may, let me try and find the... Here we go.
Israel has damaged and destroyed numerous centers of Palestinian learning and culture, including the Al-Zafar Damari Mosque and Center for Manuscripts and Ancient Documents, the Orthodox Cultural Center, the Al-Qarara Cultural Museum, the Gaza Center for Culture and Arts, the Arab Social Cultural Center, the Hakawi Society for Culture and Arts, and the Rafah Museum, Gaza's newly opened museum of Palestinian heritage, housing hundreds of cultural and archaeological artifacts. Israel's attacks have destroyed Gaza's ancient history. 8 sites have been damaged or destroyed, including the ancient port of Gaza, known as Anthedon Harbor or Al-Balakia, the archaeological site of a 2,000-year-old Roman cemetery listed on both the Islamic Heritage List and tentative UNESCO World Heritage List. Israel has also destroyed Gaza City's old city, including its 146-year-old historic houses, mosques, churches, markets, and schools. It has also destroyed more recent history of more hopeful times, including the Rashad al-Shawa Cultural Center, site of the historic meeting between United States President Bill Clinton and Palestinian President Yasser Arafat 25 years ago, and an important cultural hub for Palestinians in Gaza with its theater, library, and event space. And Israel is destroying Gaza's future academic and cultural potential. Alongside the 352 Palestinian schools, it has damaged or destroyed the 4,037 students and 209 teachers and educational staff it has killed, alongside the other 7,259 students and 619 teachers it has injured. Israel has damaged or destroyed an estimated 318 Muslim and Christian religious sites, demolishing the places where Palestinians have worshipped for generations. These include the Great Omari Mosque, originally a 5th century Byzantine church, an iconic landmark of Gaza's history, architecture, and cultural heritage, and a place of worship by Christians and Muslims for over 1,000 years. Israeli shelling has also...
For like a frame of reference, as you guys know, the Notre Dame in France burned down. If I'm not mistaken, that did happen. 2021, 2020. I don't remember when it burned down. It was very sad. This should invoke the same emotion in you that invokes. Something like a building with historic significance that's been around for this long getting destroyed. It should not be just like, oh, there's another building in Gaza. No, it's a historic building that has history? The arrow on top of Notre Dame, I could see the smoke from my apartment. Couldn't care, though. Sorry. Guys, this guy admitted that he's French. Guys, he admitted that he's French. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I know lots of people probably don't care about Notre Dame and everything. But for the people who do, or the people who did care about that, it's the same thing. This should invoke the same emotion in you. How the hell can they make sure not to hit those? Israel would be ballistic if their religious sites were bombed. Yeah. Yeah. It's worse because this destruction is intentional. I get way more upset seeing the worst house in Gaza get destroyed than the Notre Dame catching fire. Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, to be clear, they're not comparable. One of them was accidental and the other one is an act of genocide. And the side effects of genociding a people. So yes, of course, one is explicitly worse. I'm talking just about the actual destruction of the building. People had the most emotional reactions to Notre Dame. I remember it so clearly. Yeah. And you don't see anyone doing that for this. I saw people like sobbing about the Notre Dame getting destroyed by the fire. And to be clear, I did mourn it because I am a slut for architecture. I do love architecture, especially I'm basic, just like everybody else. What is it called? Baroque art? Architecture? Is that right? With the buttressing and everything. But I also mourn this. Gothic. Thank you. Whew. Gothic. Thank you. It's been a long time. Baroque is a music type? No, Baroque is definitely it's definitely an art style or an art period. And I believe it's an architectural period as well. What I'm thinking of is Gothic. All Westerners know at least a little bit of French history. Palestinian history, on the other hand, is being completely erased and we may lose all of it forever. Yeah. Yeah. It just shows that Westerners only care about Roman architecture from Europe, which is just so stupid, by the way, because I've shown it to you guys before. For anyone who hasn't seen it, some of the most gorgeous pieces of architecture are mosques, Muslim places of worship. And the reason that they are so gorgeous is because you're not allowed to have any figures of living creatures in a mosque because it's considered idolatry in Islam. So paintings or stained glass or sculptures of people or animals, those are not allowed to be depicted inside of a mosque because, again, it is considered idolatry. Yeah, here, this is Baroque architecture. Thank you for posting it. I was like, it's not Baroque, but I can't remember what it's called. Gothic. Yeah. What was I going to show you guys? I was going to show you guys something. Oh, yeah. So because of that, because there are no depictions of people or animals or anything like that, Muslim people got pretty creative and got really into geometric shapes. And so a lot of these places, a lot of historic mosques are gorgeous. They are so beautiful and intricate, and they are works of art. But they don't get as much attention, and people don't know about them because they don't get any coverage in the West. You have to actively have seeked it out in order to know about it, which is very frustrating because, the United States, fucking dog shit country. Like, how can you look me in the eyes and tell me that this isn't one of the prettiest things that you've ever seen. Like, just breathtaking. I just need a blunt. Yeah. I just need some marijuana to really enjoy it. So anyways, but the artists want to make it stuff. Wow, Charity. It's kind of game. Anywho, just as an example, the architecture is just as important as the French architecture or any of the other types of architecture. I don't think I've heard of that. Hood. Wait, 1 second. 1 second. Pretty sure this type of art was like a dedication practice. Oh, yeah. What is this? 7 minutes long. Okay, we're gonna have to watch this later. Katie Britt. This Katie Britt story. Woman. Did you see the video that Republican Senator Katie Britt lived? A 20-year-old story about a woman. I can't understand this because it's not. I don't understand the sentence. I'm sorry. Okay, moving on. It is time to watch the Asmongold video. I just wanted to cover the destruction of this art and say that actually what the person is doing is base, and what the person is doing is a form of art in and of itself. It's like the piece of, you guys remember the banana piece of art, the banana that's taped to the wall, and how people constantly are like, oh, it's not art, it's not art. The fact that it's talked about as much as it is that it makes it a piece of art. And if that can be art, a video of someone destroying a painting can be art. Let's close these tabs. Cleaning up my tabs, guys. Being sane. Oh, right. On the topic of DBZ, I guess. It's time. On the topic of DBZ and wokeness or whatever, it's time. Have you seen the wall we put up in Belfast using images of the paintings that were sent to our artists? No, I don't think I have. White people, thank you for the gift sub. Thank you. I will admit I don't understand modern art, but it's cool. If anyone in here doesn't understand modern art, highly, highly, highly recommend, if you have the ability to do so, take an art history class. Specifically a modern art history class, because you will have and you will develop such a respect for modern art that you otherwise would never have. Because me, like everybody else, did not respect modern art until realizing that modern art is absolutely art. One of the better examples, now to be clear, Picasso does not make modern art. I believe he dabbled in, it wasn't surrealism, it was oh, what's surrealism? Yeah. Cubism, surrealism. Oh, it actually does. It is technically considered still modern art because it was recent enough. Okay, cool. Okay, 1 second. What was I going to say? Oh, I think you develop a big respect for someone like Picasso when you realize that this isn't just him painting some shit that looks hideous because he doesn't know how to paint. When you make the realization that actually Picasso could make fine art and that he painted things like this and that he absolutely had the ability and skill to do so, but he chose not to paint like that, should tell you everything you need to know. Do you like Klimt? Of course I like Klimt. I will never forget, I went to a Klimt exhibition. It was like a small gallery in New York, and it was, the pieces are so breathtaking in person. Based, yeah. So like he knew how to paint the way that the statue profile pictures on Twitter. He knew how to paint the way that those people would respect, but he disagreed, and he thought it was for himself, a worse form of expression, which is why he didn't paint like that. He painted like this. He felt it was more expressive, or that he was able to communicate more, or that it felt like more to him. And I think when you recognize that, like, a lot of the artists who make shit that looks hideous or whatever have the ability to do realistic painting and they choose not to, and then the other common, like, misconception, not putting you on blast, no toxicity or anything like that. Yeah, once you know the rules, you can break them. Just look into Impressionism and Expressionism, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about different art styles, I think. A lot of modern art can be done by a 3-year-old. You would actually be surprised. I'm trying to find... Here it is. This is one of the classic...
I really like surrealism. The theory behind it is that they want to make art you would only be able to see in the real world as a way to reaffirm that they're not in a dream.
Oh, that's cool. Famous artist Barnett Newman, maybe infamous is a better name or description for it. But he painted those paintings that are just colors on a canvas. He was the one who painted the Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue. He made like 3 installations of this, and it's just, or I guess 4, maybe more, I'm not sure, bars. And it's exactly what it looks like. It's just red, yellow, blue. However, as you can see from this photo, someone defaced it. The first attack happened on April 13, 1982, when a German student vandalized Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow, and Blue 4 shortly after it went on display. Claimed it was a perversion of the German flag and made a mockery of the German people. And then there was this one, second and most famous attack, occurred in 1986 when a man named Gerard walked into the museum in Amsterdam and willfully damaged it with a box cutter. Van Blanderen, the guy who damaged it, created a series of long slashes on the painting, which added together were 50 feet long. He was sentenced to 5 months in prison for the attack, which he served, though he never expressed remorse for destroying the painting. And this is one of those paintings that's like, people have gone to museums and they're like, I could fucking paint that. It's easy. Hello, it's just a line of blue and red. But it's not that easy, actually.
Cultural Bolshevism?
Inside the controversial restoration of his painting. After the attack, there was a conversation concerning who would do the restoration. Despite the work provoking a lot of anger in museum goers due to its simplicity, the painting was incredibly intricate, and experts knew that it would be nearly unattainable to complete a faithful restoration. Although the work was mostly just an expanse of color red, both the shade and technique Newman used were difficult to replace. Prior to the slashing, it was almost impossible to see brush strokes on the work with the naked eye. Additionally, one of the cardinal rules of restoring paintings is that everything done to the work should be reversible, something that would be very difficult to do with such large cuts. The painting sat damaged for many years because no conservationists wanted to touch it. It was so hard to fix this painting. These people were like, I don't want to touch that. Oh my God. that is going to be so complicated to fucking fix. But the thing is, you as a typical viewer have no idea the work that might have went into this. To get it to the point where there were no brush strokes, despite it being painted with a brush. It's like, it's sort of the way that when someone is good at something, they make it look easy. It's the same sort of thing. When someone is very good at a thing, they make doing that thing look easy, but it's not easy. A great example is like YouTube videos. I swear to God, when I watch YouTube videos, I'm like, oh, I could make this. And then I try making one and I'm like, this is so hard. This is like, it is so hard to make a good video. Whoa. Like from scratch, beginning to end. So yeah. Anywho, yeah, anytime you're going to say that like, a 3-year-old could do this, double check that you aren't speaking from a place of ignorance and that you actually do know that the piece of art that was made could be easily replicated. And of course, the classic, I could do that. Okay, then do it.